Hi, I'm Thanks Too Much, and today we're going to be looking at SOMA and how it explores the scary theme of loneliness. Just as a warning, just like most of my videos, I will be spoiling most of the big plots of the game. Don't really get into the ending, but I do get into some of the big twists. So if you haven't played this game yet, I recommend you do so first because it is very brutal, but also very unforgettable. With that said, let's get into it. Back in 2019, William Shatner gave a surprisingly honest interview on 60 Minutes Australia about his fear of loneliness. In it, he said, quote, "Loneliness, being alone, the fear of being alone, is a huge part of what I am. At this grade school that I was attending, the teacher on Valentine's Day said, everybody send the people you like a Valentine's. Everybody was going to get a Valentine. Some intuition, even as whatever I was, 6 or 7 years old, I sent myself Valentines. And those were the only Valentines I got. So that why I don't know." End quote. It says a lot about today's world that even Captain Kirk himself is fearful of ending up alone. It says even more about today's video game culture that gaming developers, both indie and AAA, are willing to explore this very scary thing called loneliness in brutally honest ways. Such is the case for SOMA, a hard sci fi adventure horror game created by Frictional Games, the same people responsible for the terrifying Amnesia series. Much has been said about the game's hard sci fi themes, such as what is conscience, what is human, and who am I. Indeed, these themes do deserve their own videos to explore in detail, and many people have done so in much better detail than I ever could. However, the theme that I don't see many people discussing with Soma is its exploration of loneliness and how that loneliness is ever present throughout the entire game. Soma makes the player feel completely isolated through the fear of the unknown, its horror, the loss of identity, and the lack of connection with people and places. Add in the aforementioned horror sci fi themes that have made Soma an indie cult classic, and its exploration of the realities of loneliness is not something to be overlooked. But first, let's set up the story really quick. Your name is Simon Jarrett, and the year is 2015 in the city of Toronto. After Simon is involved in a tragic car accident that killed his girlfriend Ashley, he is left with terminal brain damage. Simon is a likable and regular guy, living in a regular apartment, working in a regular comic book store. In other words, he's easy to relate to, which makes his current predicament more tragic. Simon's only hope for survival is a brain scan by new technology created by Dr. Munchie. With this brain scan, Dr. Munchie hopes to study Simon's brain to see if he can be saved. You later find out that, ultimately, the scan failed to save Simon. Or did save Simon, depending on how you look at it. But when Simon gets in to scan his brain, he suddenly seems to be transported to an abandoned and derelict station, completely unknown to Simon. And this is where Soma's exploration of loneliness truly begins. From the very beginning, you are lost and you have no idea what to do and have to somehow move forward in order to get your bearings on what is going on. At first, I thought this was a Alice in Wonderland situation where something went wrong with the brain scan in Dr. Munchie's office, and now Simon is stuck in his broken mind and his consciousness is represented by the abandoned station that he now finds himself in. However, you quickly find out that the situation is more complicated than that. The further you explore the first moments of the game, you realize that something terribly wrong has happened to this place. You eventually find out that you're in a massive underwater facility called Pathos 2, used for scientific research on alternative energy or something along those lines. But whatever research was going on here has long spent its usefulness. To make things worse, there are robots that believe that they are human and argue with Simon about their current predicament. Simon sees them as robots, but something within the machines does not allow them to see themselves as such. They are disconnected from their own reality, which puts Simon in a very tricky situation. what can he do? Can he do anything at all? The worst part is that in the best of these situations, Simon has no choice but to walk away, and it's a pretty harsh world Simon woke up to where the best he can do is nothing and let things be. In my first playthrough, this added a lot to the feeling of loneliness because I was out of my element, just like Simon. I wanted to help, but I couldn't, and once I realized that this place was real and not in Simon's head, I wanted to know where I was. How did I get here? Is there anyone left alive? Not knowing these questions made me feel like I was truly alone, and the game does a great job of making you feel lonely via the unknown, until you meet Catherine, or at least the downloaded conscience of Catherine. Once you meet Catherine, things are still screwed up, but at least you have a guiding voice to explain what's going on. The year is 2104, and humanity has been wiped out by an asteroid colliding with Earth. Since Pathos 2 is a station under the deepest depths of the Atlantic Ocean, the crew was spared, but now with no surface to return to, it was only a matter of time before each one of the crew died off. Sure, it would probably take years or even decades before the whole crew died off, but death is inevitable for all of them. Catherine, one of the station's smart but unpopular and antisocial scientists, proposes that they all copy their consciousness and put it in a simulation known as the Ark and launch it into space where it can survive for hundreds of thousands of years. But something went wrong, and along the way, the Ark was never launched. Oh, and you also discover that you are not really Simon, but a copy of Simon's consciousness that has been activated by the station's AI program, called the WOW, to help see if this nearly century-old guy from Toronto can salvage what the original crew of Pathos 2 failed to save. Your body is literally a morbid concoction held together by a dead body, a cortex chip, and a mysterious substance called structure gel that can fix electric items and reanimate living matter into something. After spending the initial moments of the game feeling lonely because of not knowing what's going on, sometimes ignorance is bliss. The story and its presentation of deep reflective themes is so well put together and raw that many people have asked whether SOMA needed to be a horror game to begin with. One of the more popular mods on the PC version of the game is the ability to remove the monsters and simply go through the story with no interruption. The argument goes that the game's scary mechanical creatures detract from the overall narrative. I disagree with this argument, mainly because the game's theme of loneliness would not be as effective if you took away all the scary creatures and just blew through the game in a couple of hours. What makes the monsters in SOMA especially tragic is that at one point they used to be alive in what we would consider a normal human state. However, as the crew of Pathos 2 started to die out due to suicide by misinformation, the WOW, which also has control of the entire station, was given strict orders not to let anyone die. The humans must live, one way or another. But the AI simply doesn't know what being alive means to humans. The WOW doesn't understand human life like humans do. I mean, why would it? All the AI knows is that if the humans stop breathing and turn stiff, that's bad. So the WOW uses some structure gel and some mechanical parts infused with bodies, or parts of bodies, to get the dead humans in the station moving again. Is this being alive if whatever is left of the crew is still moving even after death? The WOW thinks it's good enough. However, the structure gel makes whatever it creates very hostile to Simon and anyone else who would be an actual 100% human. This is the horror of loneliness when it comes to the creatures you face. They used to be people who could have helped you out. They used to be someone with a unique identity and could have at least given you some company. But they have long been corrupted by a concoction of dead flesh, metal parts, and a mysterious substance used by an AI that was, ironically, just trying to help, which makes the whole situation even more tragic. There is some slight hint that the game might be trying to portray the WOW as an evil AI, like so many other sci-fi stories, But the game is smarter than that, and I think overall the game does a good job of simply saying the WoW doesn't know. The WoW knows it needs to keep the humans alive. But what is alive? Is it moving around physically, even if the actual person is no longer there? Or is it having your mind transferred into a utopia simulation and feeling alive, even if you know you are just in a simulation and don't have any actual physical presence? For the WoW, it's making sure the humans don't decay and rot into nothingness. There are various areas in the game where you see the crew of the station infused into the walls and floors as the WoW keeps them in what seems to be a permanent state of agony. Whatever is physically left of these people seems to be going through a lot of pain. They wince and breathe heavily and look like their skin have developed countless pustules due to the WoW's insistence on keeping them alive. However, at one point, Simon is overwhelmed by one of the WoW's monsters and infused in the wall. While Simon is trapped, he is connected to the WoW, and the WoW sends him back to his apartment in Toronto. Ashley is there, but Simon knows this is impossible because Ashley died in a car crash at the beginning of the game. It's 2015 as well. It's here you realize that the WoW is genuinely trying to make whatever is left of its human host comfortable by giving them what it thinks they want. Simon loved Ashley, and he misses Toronto. He misses his old dingy apartment. He misses being back in 2015. So this is what Simon wants, right? This now changes your perspective on the other WoW people you encounter in the story. They seem to be suffering, but are they really? Like Simon, are they just in a state of blissful delirium for which they might actually prefer to stay in, rather than face the harsh reality of Pathos 2? A reality of no future and crushing loneliness that Simon will, tragically, discover at the very end of his adventure? Eventually, Simon breaks free of the WoW's illusion and continues his journey. But even though the world around him is destroyed and bare, that might not be the case for those that seem like they are in pain. And that begs the question, who's in a more dire situation? The copy of a person held together by tech and necrotic flesh? Or the people who look physically miserable, but who are otherwise in a blissful state of ignorance? Simon doesn't have the luxury of ignorance, even if he can't catch up with what's going on around him because he is literally a man out of time. Not to mention that the WoW's attempts to save people don't always go as planned. There are situations where you can interact with other mostly human or mostly robot beings that seem to be in great pain or great joy. In most situations, you are forced to unplug whatever is powering them up, thereby killing them in the process, which, once again, leaves Simon utterly alone. Simon will find someone or something, try to help, and inadvertently kill them, just as there was some relief that there may be someone else other than Catherine to help you. Again, in the best situations, you can simply walk away, but in some ways, that's even harder. There is a broken machine about halfway through the game that is clearly stuck in a limited version of the Ark. She didn't make it to the real one, so the WoW connects her to whatever it can offer. Like other robots, it thinks it's a person, and she is in a delirious state of wonder when she meets Simon, even if she can't move. Simon doesn't dare to tell her about her real situation, and even though the player is given the chance to disconnect her, actually doing it would feel like I was killing someone. So I left her there, alone to explore whatever wonders the WoW could provide. Whatever they are, the sad truth is that they are infinitely better than Simon's reality. So, what is Simon's reality, and what makes it so miserable and lonely? To get the two obvious points out of the way, Simon's reality is that he is literally no longer himself, but a robot with the copied conscience of the real Simon, revived because there was literally no one else available to save whatever was left of humanity in this bleak future. He is a copy of a man that is nearly a century out of time, and with this fact, you start to understand how Simon is disconnected from everything and everyone around him. There is a part in the game in which Simon speaks to Catherine about the realization of how his sense of identity was connected to the people and the places he knew in Toronto. But all of that is gone now. Everything that was familiar to Simon and everything that he took for granted no longer exists. When you get down to it, the only reason Simon and Catherine are trying to save the Ark and all the downloaded people in it is because there's literally nothing else to do. The surface world is destroyed, and Pathos 2 is slowly succumbing to time. In a few decades, there will be nothing left. So saving the Ark is literally the only thing Simon can do that makes him feel somewhat useful, even if he doesn't understand it. In fact, another factor in Simon's loneliness is his lack of understanding with what's going on. His lack of understanding is not because Simon is dumb, but because, as mentioned before, he is a man out of time. There have been some criticism towards Simon's character that he is too slow on the draw when he doesn't understand the process of his conscience being copied rather than transferred when this revelation is made clear to him. However, I find this to be really unfair to Simon considering his situation. He is a copy of a person who lived nearly a century ago, and yet he is expected to understand the really fucked up future he woke up to in a few hours? Personally, I'm surprised he even agrees to help Catherine in the first place considering how out of place he is. And speaking of Catherine, it is considered by many that she is Simon's only friend throughout the whole game. And considering she is also a copy of the real Catherine inside a funky Game Boy looking device, that is enough to make Simon's list of companions a very sad one. But Simon is wrong about Catherine being a friend. Catherine never really takes the time to explain Simon's situation out of understanding, but eventually has to do so out of convenience or obligation, and she sounds more annoyed with Simon when he doesn't get it, even though it's completely understandable why he wouldn't. Catherine keeps that borderline condescending tone throughout the entire game. The only time Simon and Catherine have some sort of connection is toward the last part of the game, when they both need to lower themselves to the deepest parts of the ocean. Simon copies himself to another body with a suit that can stand the water pressure. The key here is copied, not transferred, and the reality that there are now two Simons hits Simon like a brick to the face. He's furious at Catherine for not telling him the truth about the process, but at the same time, this is the realization that Simon needed to understand the world he now lives in. To be fair to Catherine, she could have explained the process to him, but Simon would not understand it. He had to live the moment himself in order to understand, and now he has no excuse. You are left with the choice to let your old copy rest, for which he will wake up completely abandoned and alone, or kill your old copy to spare him such a fate. I chose to kill my own Simon, and the main reason I did it was loneliness, because if that were actually me, being alone in a derelict station filled with corrupted monsters with not even Catherine to keep me company would be too much to bear. The fear of that loneliness was enough for me to justify the killing of another person, even if that person was a copy of me, because that loneliness, for me, was worse than death. Maybe I'm right, or maybe I'm just trying to justify a fictional murder. Either way, both choices leave you with guilt and regret in the end. But this does lead to one of the few times that Catherine and Simon connect in a real human way. Regardless of what you do with the previous Simon, your Simon does not want to think about what just occurred. So he pleads to Catherine to say something. Anything. It's here that Catherine becomes vulnerable and speaks of the time she truly felt connected to the world around her, involving a childhood memory of her going to the rooftop of her house she used to live in back in Taipei. She describes in vivid detail the wind in her hair and how alive the city felt to her in that moment. It was a connection she has never felt before and has never felt since. Again, something that seems so mundane, yet now so priceless in a world in which Simon and Catherine now live in. This small but significant detail of Catherine's life shows just how much connection with people and places mean, even in a world that's falling apart. Going back to the 60 Minutes interview with William Shatner, the interviewer asked if his fear of loneliness was due to people not wanting a connection with him. He answered, quote, "Yes. Well, what is the connection and how long does the connection last? What does the connection mean? How deep does the connection go? Can you depend on people being connected? What happens if you lose the connection? It has to do with love and security. I'm of the illusion that everybody is lonely at one time or another, and some people more than others." End quote. This hits it right on the head as to why Soma is so effective in exploring the themes of loneliness. For Simon, nothing connects him to the world he woke up to. And for whoever is left, there is nothing remaining to keep them connected to their own world. Towards the final moments of the game, you discover there is one living human left on Pathos 2, Sarah Lindwall. She is the last human left on Earth, and was the unlucky one left to guard the Ark. Sarah's mind has not been downloaded. She was the one left behind to look over the Ark until someone could finish her work and finally send the Ark to space. When Simon finds her, she has two requests: to send her friends to the stars, where they can live for thousands of years, and to kill her. Her first request is obvious. Whatever is left of her friends is in the Ark. And even if they aren't physically present, it's still the best anyone can offer for a small resemblance of humanity to continue. Her second request is also understandable, but no less difficult, until you hear Sarah's reasoning. She is hooked up to a life support system, and she wants to rest. Really and truly rest. Not just from the physical pain that she has obviously gone through, but more from the emotional pain that has accumulated within her. Everything that connected Sarah to her world, her home, her friends, her family, her country, it's all gone. When you search the desk next to Sarah, you see a lot of pictures that are supposed to be her home in Greenland and other travel photos. But all of that is gone now. It's just memories. Sarah doesn't want to live in a world where she is literally the only human left and can't even go back home. Everything that gave Sarah her own identity no longer exists, and the people that could have livened up her life are long gone. It's these reasons that made killing Sarah feel more like mercy than murder. As you disconnect her, Sarah asks you to stay. Simon might be a robot, but he is still the best consolation the world can offer her at this point. As Sarah dies, she talks about her home and travels. She talks about the wonder of the places she's seen, with a beauty and pain of longing to see them again. She even recommends Simon to visit, as if they still exist. I was holding back tears during this moment of the game. The first time I played SOMA was in the summer of 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. I am a traveler myself, and I have had the privilege of going to 6 different countries, all while speaking 3 different languages. Travel has helped me find purpose in my own life. Every time I visit new places, meet new people, and eat delicious food I would not have otherwise. And then, in just a few weeks, it was all taken away. No more travel due to the pandemic, and it would be more than a year before I could travel internationally again. So, in a very small way, I understood Sarah's pain. To take away what makes you feel alive, to take away what connects you to this world, that is a fate worse than death. This moment in SOMA as to why Sarah wants to die is done so well that you forget what her death means in the literal sense, the extinction of the human race. But being the last in a world that used to be brimming with life is not an honor, it's a sacrifice. Willingly or not, Sarah took on that sacrifice with bravery, knowing the pain it would bring her. And from this point of view, it was a relief to finally see her rest. The ending of the game has been the talk and shock of many gamers, both for its brutal nature and for the gut punch it gives you. But by now, I think I've made my point on how SOMA is just as successful with exploring loneliness as it is exploring its other hard sci-fi themes. Besides, unlike SOMA, I don't want to end this video on a downer. If there is anything I learned from my time with SOMA, it's to appreciate the time I have with unique experiences, friends, and family. The world of Soma is dark and bleak, but our own world doesn't have to be that way, and it does nobody any good to isolate themselves as a defense mechanism, even when the feeling of loneliness is overwhelming. In the words of William Shatner on his advice on how to avoid loneliness, quote, "Do something for someone." That's my advice. That's what I would do. Do something for somebody else. And for me, that's a way of avoiding or overcoming loneliness. End quote. Thank you for watching.